All right. I won't be really doing a single movie review today. I'll mostly be doing a, a comparative bit. Figuring out one of the biggest Oscar debates of all time. That is the 1991 Oscars. Dances with Wolves won the main prizes over the much favorited Goodfellas. I love both movies, but I will tell you why my favorite one between the two is Dances with Wolves. And I'll also tell you why Dances with Wolves beating Goodfellas at the Oscars should not be considered a travesty. It's okay if you love Goodfellas more than Dances with Wolves. I just want to shed some light on why Dances with Wolves is simply much too good a film for its wins to be considered a travesty. Usually when people count down the Oscars' biggest snubs, most people put the fact that Goodfellas lost its two main things. Most of them put it on there like pretty high up. I've always hated that. I've always disagreed with that. And it's not any sort of bias. I have pretty good evidence that says why that shouldn't be. Now, the Oscars is the biggest, most prestigious film company, film thing out there. And even though they have made some big mistakes in their past, like Emma Stone wins for La La Land, and Going My Way wins Best Picture over Double Indemnity and Laura, and Chariots of Fire wins over Indiana Jones. Around the World in 80 Days wins over The Ten Commandments. Some things like that are much worse than Goodfellas losing Best Picture and Best Director, like, easily. Because at least Dances with Wolves was a good film. There's been lots of films in the past that have won that aren't good. I just named Going My Way. I named Chariots of Fire. Let's also say, now, I'm probably the only one in the world that didn't like Terms of Endearment. But come on, Terms of Endearment against Fanny and Alexander and Scarface and The Right Stuff and Return of the Jedi, Tender Mercies. Yeah, Terms of Endearment doesn't compete with those. You put those films against Terms of Endearment. Terms of Endearment comes up way short. I'm not, and even though I don't like Terms of Endearment at all, you gotta admit those films blow Terms of Endearment out of the water. And I just mentioned Around the World in 80 Days also. It's another good example. Yeah, there's just so many films out there that really shouldn't have won because they simply weren't good. And how they did win is really beyond me. And if you do look at Dances with Wolves and Goodfellas, if you do find Goodfellas better, which I'm sure most of you do, the distance between Goodfellas and Dances with Wolves is pretty close. If you look at Shakespeare in Love and Saving Private Ryan, the distance between those two is much farther apart. If you look at The Social Network and The King's Speech, again, much farther apart than those. Rocky and Taxi Driver, another good example of the distance between them two in terms of greatness being much farther apart. So yeah, I just named a whole bunch of films that would easily make, that are easily far worse off than Goodfellas and Dances with Wolves being considered travesties. And you also got acting, for instance. Like, I mentioned Emma Stone winning Best Actress for La La Land. That was an extremely ordinary performance that should not even have been nominated. Now, I did like La La Land, but the acting performances by Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling really weren't all that good. So it was just an amazing thing that they got even a nomination, because a win, yeah, wow. And he also had like Paul Newman in Color of Money winning his first Oscar for that. Yeah, Color of Money, the sequel to The Hustler, not a good film. Paul Newman was nah in it. To me, I consider Paul Newman's best performances to be Cat on Hot Tin Roof and The Verdict, which nobody can really disagree with, that The Verdict and Cat on Hot Tin Roof are his best performances. But him winning for The Color of Money for 1986, that right there in itself, that's an acting performance that is much more of a travesty than Goodfellas and Dances with Wolves. Now let's actually dig into Dances with Wolves and Goodfellas themselves. See why I don't want this to be considered much of a travesty. I just gave you some good examples, both acting and previous films. But let's look at the films themselves, okay? Let's look at Goodfellas. Great performances, excellent directing, and it has probably the best performance out of both films, done by Joe Pesci. But at the same time, it has that one flaw that I totally hate about it, and that is that it makes the actual things mobsters do, the cheating on the wives, the stealing, it makes all that out to be fun and really beneficial. And I've never liked that about the film. And yeah, that's just. But also in Goodfellas, it's often said to be the male fantasy film. So it's a movie where you're immersed in it and you feel like you're Henry Hill, like you do whatever you want, and you never ever get any consequences for it, except at the very end when Henry starts to become all cocky and thinks that he can do whatever he wants, and gets all tangled up in the drugs and has to rat everybody out. Yeah, really the best thing that has going for it is, but also the movie is, it's just simply a lot more fun. Does fun always mean a better film? I don't think so. But yeah, the best things that it has going for it is that it's fun. It has amazing directing and Joe Pesci's performance. We all can agree that Joe Pesci gives the best performance out of everyone in it. Now let's look at Dances with Wolves by itself. It really, while Goodfellas spawned new life into the crime genre in films, Dances with Wolves really spawned an entire genre, the going native genre. You look at Avatar, it's really Dances with Wolves in space. You look at The Last Samurai, it's really Dances with Wolves in Japan. But Dances with Wolves, on the other hand, is easily the best one. Here's why. Let's start off with Kevin Costner's performance. Okay, Kevin Costner, I know a lot of people don't like him, but he gives his best performance in this. He was easily Oscar worthy that year. That was the year that Jeremy Irons won for playing in Reversal of Fortune, which was an easy Oscar win. But if he didn't win, if there was any sort of snub, they would have given it to Kevin Costner. He delivers a really good performance. So yeah, you got the lead performances between Goodfellas and Dances with Wolves. It's Dances with Wolves that comes up the victor. Kevin Costner, easily better than Ray Liotta. You got Graham Greene as a secondary character in Dances with Wolves, named Kicking Bird, who is the medicine man. He's really the only thing that's able to get Kevin Costner to really assimilate into the Sioux tribe. And the way that it happens is so wonderful and everything. And Graham Greene is the only reason behind all that. But Graham Greene doesn't really possess that electric power that Joe Pesci has. So between the two supporting male actors, Joe Pesci wins easily. Plus, you got the supporting women in it: Mary McDonnell from Dances with Wolves and Lorraine Bracco for Goodfellas. Now, Dances with Wolves has the far better romance to it. But if you look at the performances by Mary McDonnell and Lorraine Bracco themselves, the best performance of either is Lorraine Bracco for Goodfellas. But let's move on to some really good things about Dances with Wolves that I like about it, that I consider why it is better than Goodfellas. I talked about Kevin Costner's performance beating out Ray Liotta's easily. And the other thing that is just amazing about Dances with Wolves is Kevin Costner, he co-wrote it, he co-adapted it, he produced it, he directed it, he starred in it, all amazingly. And the way that Kevin Costner is able to make this film is so extraordinary. I would call Dances with Wolves and Barry Lyndon, the Stanley Kubrick film, and My Fair Lady from 1964 to be the most beautiful films in the history of cinema. In Dances with Wolves, there's no use of computer technology. Maybe there is for some buffalo hunt and whatever. But yeah, if there is any sort of computer effects, it's used at an extreme minimal. Dances with Wolves is such a gorgeous picture. You look at the sunsets and the landscapes. Just amazing, just amazing. Even the shots that you wouldn't really associate with a stereotypical Western. Like when Kevin Costner is in his little shack before he gets assimilated. All that's done very beautifully too. Now, this copy of Dances with Wolves that I have right here, it's 3 hours and 56 minutes. The normal thing of Dances with Wolves is 3 hours. So this 4-hour cut of Dances with Wolves does a much better job of immersing the viewer into the film. And if you honestly ask me, watching the 4-hour cut of Dances with Wolves immerses me better and deeper than Goodfellas. It's not because it's longer. Well, actually, I think that if I were to see the 3-hour cut of Dances with Wolves, that I probably would not be as immersed in it as I am with this 4-hour edition. But yeah, because whenever I watch Dances with Wolves, this 4-hour version, things are so gorgeous in it. I'm sucked in so deep that I always have trouble returning to reality afterwards. Like, I'm just so blown away by it. And I mentioned how gorgeous the film looks. I always say that not every single shot in the film, every frame in the film, there's about 24 frames per second whenever shooting a movie. And I say each and every frame of the film could be in a prestigious art museum in Europe. That is how gorgeous Dances with Wolves is. Some people often whine about the fact that Martin Scorsese, his directing in Goodfellas is just so innovative and so amazing. The way that he's able to really move the cameras and edit quickly and everything. And Kevin Costner doesn't really do that very much in Dances with Wolves. Okay, do you realize how much I would have taken away from the gorgeous look of the film of Dancing with Wolves if Kevin Costner used all of those fast editing and fast camera movements? Do you know how bad the movie would have been if Costner did that? the movie would have looked ridiculous. The movie would have so much stuff would have been taken away from it. When you watch an epic, whether it's Lawrence of Arabia or Gone with the Wind or Dances with Wolves, they try to be as gorgeous as possible. And if you were to make all those editing shots and all those camera movements and everything, the movie would have lost so much beauty that way. And I really don't see why people, um, I don't see why people don't see that. So one other thing that I want to take out of this is that Dancing with Wolves is a much deeper film than Goodfellas is. It's because Goodfellas, it's not really a whole lot of depth to it. I mean, a mobster, this young guy wants to be a mobster because he likes to abuse his power. He likes to earn respect that way. He likes to do whatever he wants and winds up thinking that he's just the best. Gets involved in drugs and must surrender to the mafia. That's really what it is. That's just how it is at the surface. But Dance with Wolves, on the other hand, it's more about living in harmony, the unison of people. The way Graham Greene's character of Kicking Bird, he just simply thought that Costner's character of John Dunbar, he just simply coincidentally said, "Hey, I like this guy. Let's bring him in." That's just simply miraculous. Without Kicking Bird, there probably would have been a little bit more tension between Kevin Costner's John Dunbar character and the rest of the Sioux tribe. But living in harmony it's just simply, that's so just glorious the way that it turns out in Dances with Wolves. Some people say that they don't really like the fact that in Dances with Wolves there's not really a whole lot of likable Caucasian characters. Everyone seems, it's all just black and white. Like all the Native Americans are good and all the Caucasians are bad. I totally disagree with that. There are some good white people in it. There are some bad Native Americans in it. But we get a story about two different races living together and learning how to accept one another, learning how to live in harmony, learning how to be friends. And the way that these themes are handled all together, it's just great. And no, the movie is not nearly as fun as Goodfellas, and it doesn't need to be. Dance with Wolves is a more important film. It is much better looking, and it's a lot deeper. So I knew that this video wasn't intended to say, "Oh, you guys should all like Dancing with Wolves more than Goodfellas because Goodfellas sucks and Dancing with Wolves is better." Now, this video was just to shed some light on why I don't like the whole rivalry between these two films. They're two totally different films. I hate the rivalry between them two. This was just to say that Dances with Wolves is a good film. It is a great film, and it does not deserve to be considered a travesty. The fact that it defeated Goodfellas at the Oscars, because I named many worse winners, and me saying why Dances with Wolves is such a great film. There you have it.